How's everyone doing? Great. Okay. So I am very excited to introduce Carlos Perez Naim. We're very lucky to have him join us today in class. So Carlos is an architect who's based in Ceuta, Spain, in North Africa, and he's going to talk to us today about his research about both the desert and kind of viewing the Sahara as a sea, but then also about being sort of situated between three seas, the Mediterranean, the Atlantic, and then the Sahara. So we're really lucky to have him kind of give us that perspective. He's actually here for the convening Yunus Rahmoun through the museum. So I don't know if you've all seen those emails, but Yunus will join us on Friday morning for a performance, and there are several events kind of surrounding that. So, Carlos, if I've left anything out, you're welcome to say a few more words.
So, I'm just going to share with you my experience working in a city like Ceuta. I'm not going to tell all the things I have been doing in France or in other cities in Spain, because also it's the way to share how I arrived to this idea of the Sahara as a sea. And also it's like a very personal trip I've been making all this year. No? So first of all, a little bit of information about the geography of where I'm coming from, which is the Strait of Gibraltar, which is the connection between the Mediterranean Sea, the Atlantic Ocean, but also the European continent and the African one. The Strait of Gibraltar, that maybe there are some cities like the Moroccan city of Tangier, and then the Spanish city of Ceuta, my city, Tarifa, Algeciras, and the British city of Gibraltar. So you can see it's a very complex space with 3 countries. No? The geography is very important to understand any place. We have the chance in Ceuta to have, in the Islamic period, a geographer called Al-Idrisi from the 12th century. It is not just because I'm proud of having such a geographer like that, but because he was almost the first geographer that drew this plan of the world. I don't know if you understand that plan, the Tabula Rogeliana. It's a little bit complicated because you have to turn your head, going to make it that easy. I turned the plan, and you can see Spain, the Strait of Gibraltar, Africa, Italy. So for me, it's very important with this plan that everything change according to the position you are looking at. Sometimes you can be from the north, but at the same time from the south. You can be from the east, at the same time from the west. Everything depends on the ways the other people. Everything depends on the reference. But let's talk about the history of this place, because it's very, very, very complex. As I said, Europe, Africa, Atlantic Ocean, and Mediterranean Sea. I'm going to talk more overall about what happened in my city. Which people came from here? First of all, the Homo erectus, Homo sapiens. Now there are Spanish researchers working on a cave they found in Ceuta, and they are trying to show that the Homo erectus or Homo sapiens, they don't know really now which of them, but they crossed to Europe not through Asia, but through the Strait of Gibraltar. But then there were the Phoenicians that arrived from the Mediterranean. Then the Romans, the Byzantines, the Visigoths, the Berbers and Arabics, the Umayyad. They were Muslim, but originally from Syria, but they came from the south of Spain. Then the dynasty from the desert, like the Almoravids or the Almohad. You can find traces of all these people in Ceuta. A period of balance between the Muslim that wanted to conquer the north of Africa and the Muslim that wanted to conquer the south of Europe. Then you have the Portuguese, the 15th century, that they arrived to Ceuta at the first stage of this extension of the empire. Then they continued through the Atlantic coast and they arrived to China. But the first point was Ceuta in 1415. And then the Spanish in the 16th century. And since then, the city has been a Spanish one. So as you can see, people coming from everywhere in this kind of crossroad. What are the traces that all these civilizations led in Ceuta? And you cannot understand, I'm talking about Ceuta, but it could be the same for Tangier, for Algeciras, or Gibraltar, if you don't take into consideration all these movements. Even what's going on. This is the point where they found, and I think you are going to like that, where they found this cave where they are working. This is a bay. Half of the bay is a Spanish one, the other half is Moroccan. You have the Strait of Gibraltar, Europe, Algeciras, Tarifa over there. So this is a cave over there where they are working with a transdisciplinary team. The below photo is what you can see right now. And then they have been working to imagine how it was the geography and the topography of that place 250,000 years ago, where the level of the sea was 150 meters lower. And that let arise some island in the middle of the Strait of Gibraltar, which made that instead of having, like today, 14 kilometers between the two continents, thanks to the island, they had to cross only 5 kilometers. 5 kilometers, one island, then another 5 kilometers, and then 5 kilometers. And that's maybe the way they could understand if they could cross to the other part of the Strait of Gibraltar. In the 10th century, the Omeyyads, it was a very important empire or dynasty, and we already knew that in Ceuta there was this tower inside a building, and we thought it was the only element we could find from this period. They used to build with a very specific stone that came from the sea. Once we have demolished the building, you can see that tower over there. The rest of the wall is for another period. In the 16th century, the Portuguese, for 1 century, they used the same wall that the Omeyyads. But 1 century later, they built this impressive fortification with a moat, because at that moment, it was not possible to cross from the North Bay to the South Bay. Those engineers, then, they built also fortifications in other places in Morocco. It is the only fortification of this kind in the world, where you can cross with a boat or a kayak. So we are talking about if a city is going to expect so many people trying to attack them and to conquer that city, you need to be fortified. And you have a fortification to protect the people coming from the African continent, but then also from the sea. So that's the part made by the Portuguese. Nowadays, there is also a building behind the fortification. It is a hotel. And visiting spaces that the hotel used to stock things they don't use, during a seminar we organized. I came inside this space with almost no light, and when I approached to this part, I realized that it was the same stone used in the 10th century. There were historians that wrote at that period that there was a 300 meters long wall, very high with a lot of towers. Everybody in Ceuta thought that it was demolished by the Portuguese, or the stone were reused to build that fortification. So when I came here with 4 friends and we saw that the gate of the 10th century was here, I couldn't believe that. And when I told my friend archaeologist, Fernando, come here, please. I found the gate of the Ceuta of the 10th century. Carlos, stop, please, stop. We have a lot of things to do. Come here right now. He couldn't believe. For 10 years, they have been working. This is the state of the gate right now. You can visit that. It is not just about the gate. In fact, the gate followed no rule. If you study other gates from the same period in Syria, in Jordan, in Spain, it was completely different. And why it was different? Because he was adapted to this space that then working, we realized it was a tower from the Byzantine, from the 6th century, adapted to another construction from the Romans from the 2nd century. So it was very, very, very complicated. I could follow the works, just doing the communication on social media, but for me it was an opportunity to be inside. And one day with my iPad, I decided to try to clarify what we had there. No? So with a very simple iPad, you can try to explain a very complex place. Then it is not just like that. Then they continue to work, and now they know much more about that. So the picture you saw there was here inside. In fact, it's a superposition of layers, but in vertical, not in horizontal, which makes that also the only place where you can find a Roman, Byzantine, Umayyad, Almohad, Portuguese, and then Spanish on the behind. So the north wall, which we knew it was like that, at the beginning of the 12th century, they had to cut the wall because they had a lot of problems with humidity and other things. And then they tried to make an extension of the road. They built that structure, and then they built the marina. And then there was a competition, architectural competition, to see how to introduce a new road because it was necessary for the city center. I won that competition with my brothers, and we recovered the fortification. And we also thought that the new vegetation, according to what people arriving in a ferry was going to find at the very best and the very first moment arriving in Ceuta. There was another point also that it was very important to solve. It was thanks to that mode that we could resolve the connection between both levels of the road. We started with this square. That was the line of the moat, and we knew that it was filled with earth, stones, and concrete. So we decided how we can connect this level and the other one. So we did something like that. A pedestrian bridge connecting two promenades, but also I realized that because of the construction, because of the vegetation, there was no place to see the sea. So we made like a balcony here. So from here you can see the Strait of Gibraltar. The same pedestrian bridge. Another project was one of my very first projects working on these fortification they built in the 19th century, because until then the city, the limits of the city was there with this huge fortification. But then they conquered all this space and they have to control that border. It is the actual border of the city. For me, it was very interesting how the military engineer used like a tutorial to make that fortification called polygonal fortification. It was a tutorial used all over Europe. But then they realized that they have problems with the enemy, with the tribe from the north of Morocco, and that this kind of fortification was not very, very useful. So they started to recover another typology, the tower of the Middle Ages, readapted to the new weapons of the 19th century. And I had the opportunity to work for 2 years in all these fortifications. There are now, that's me, there are 7 from 9, with a view over the African continent, but also to the south, to the south and to the Strait of Gibraltar. You can see the tower that's Tarifa, Algeciras. So, according to what you can see, how can be an impact to what you are going to build? I had a client. He wanted a house. Well, there were 3 houses, a dwelling, and this is the view he has to the African continent. Ceuta is fantastic because if you look to the south, you see the African continent. If you look to the north, you see Europe. Sometimes you have the impression to be completely isolated in an island. And people sometimes has this idea because they don't like to go to Morocco. They just want to go to Europe. And we are surrounded by sea, but the border is like it didn't exist. No? So how this building is going to take this view and to incorporate to the project? It was a question of, in each floor, how you can see the continent and the water. And so you adapt the space, the windows, everything, and how you can bring the sea to your house. It seems like if you were in a boat, you know. I had the opportunity. It was a very small project in the other side of the Strait of Gibraltar, near Tarifa. It was someone wanted to build a swimming pool, but because of the view, that's the strait, Africa, that's Ceuta, and he wanted to do that. It was very, very complicated because of the topography. So I started to work on with some sketches to do a balcony who could be also a swimming pool. Well, it was crazy, all the work I did. Finally, they decided not to build that. They didn't pay me. But, well, I'm proud of that small project. The Sahara Desert. In 2010, a friend of mine, artist from the south of Morocco, proposed me to come to Morocco. And then the other artist who is going to arrive tomorrow, maybe, he told me, Carlos, I'm coming with you. Because I already knew the north of Morocco, but I didn't want to discover the south as a tourist with a travel agency, so I was waiting to know someone from there so I could better discover. And this artist, Mohamed Ajdal, and the other Yunus Rahman, we made a trip. This picture is from another trip, but as an architect, I was really interested to know this kind of architecture, the ramen earth architecture. for me it was like a dream, with these landscapes, with these streets almost covered in order to be protected from the wind, from the sun, from the heat. With courtyard, with several dimensions. The palace, the houses. I also learned how to build myself, to do the ramen earth, and or to do the matte brick. But I started to try to better understand the organization of these covered spaces, because we always have this idea that the Islamic architecture is very chaotic. It is not true. Just that you need to know more about that. They are cities, small villages, fortified. I started to visit houses in these places called Qasar in Arabic, a fortified city, because it was very interesting to see how people are still living there. They use the spaces, and also to better know the different modification people did when they were building new houses around this Qasar. In ramet earth, but like this one in concrete. So for me it was a way to compare what can you do with a material with another, what people keep from old houses to new houses, like the courtyard. But anyway, I felt that it wasn't enough, because there were so many things I couldn't understand, that I decided to make, and this is one of the first research I would like to talk to you, a catalog of the architecture of this space. There are two main valleys in the desert. This is a 200 kilometers palm grove, 200. All these points are small villages. Could be a fortified city, Qasar, could be a fortified house or castle, Kasbah, or it could be also Zawiya. So you couldn't find information at all about that. And he told me, I would like to visit all of them, the 300 of them. I would like to take pictures, videos with my iPhone alone. I have no institution behind me, so I have to pay everything. I have no permissions at all. I have just my iPhone, that's all. And then I told myself, well, once I get all this information, what I'm going to do? A book? Who is going to print that book? If I ever find someone, who is going to buy if the distribution is not very interesting and very good? So I thought, we are going to put all this information on internet. Then a research of what are the tools you can use for free. So finally, these are the Google Maps. So if you go to Google Maps, you can click on every point. You are going to have pictures, sometimes videos, sometimes 360 pictures, sometimes information about the tribe, sometimes information about the dance of the tribe, sometimes some videos. It took me 6 months of work. My brother told me, what the hell are you doing? Who is paying all that work? Are you crazy? I told him, look, if I have to do a master to learn about ramet earth construction, about sustainability, about energy, about sociology, it's going to cost a fortune. I'm not going to learn half of what I have learned here. But overall, you know, some months ago, later, I received a message on Facebook. Hello, my name is Michael Toller. I've been following you when you were teaching at the Architecture School of Tetuan. Now that you started to research on the desert, and I would like to talk to you because we would like to work with you. By the way, I'm the content manager of ArcNet. Do you know ArcNet? It's an online database on architecture, on Islamic architecture and landscape and many other things. I knew ArcNet. I knew he was following me on Facebook but I didn't know who was behind ArcNet. So I looked on Google, and I found Aga Khan Foundation, MIT, Harvard University. People told me, how did you get to the MIT? It wasn't me. They looked for me because I share all my information there. Because the other possibility, what people used to do is they keep that for them. They publish that in books that nobody can buy or read, or they present that in a congress. So I never present that in a congress. I don't care about the congress, I'm sorry. Because it's more useful to use internet. Of course, then a lot of people are going to take advantage of all this information, but I don't care at all. Because what I care is to learn and to understand that place. So I understood that it wasn't just one pan grove, it was 6, Mesgida, Tinsulin, Ternata, Vezwata, Ketawa, Hamid. I started to understand the relation of the topography and geography with the valleys. I started to understand the relation between the river Dra, it's the longest river in Morocco, and also the palm grove. But also I realized that all these white dots, they are the villages made on rammed earth. Sometimes they were inside the palm grove, sometimes they are outside the palm grove. It depends, again, on the topography. I started to learn also why people are building the new extension outside of the palm grove and not inside of the palm grove. It was also a question to know how is mobility inside a palm grove with such as the dimension. This is a road connecting one kasar to another. And then the palm grove, it's just about palm trees. Sometimes it's about palm trees, but in fact there are 3 elements. You have the palm trees, you have the cereals, and then you have over there the fruit trees. There are 3 elements, and they need each other. The palm tree to provide a shadow, the fruit trees to protect the plot from the sun and from the wind, and then the cereal, they are going to renovate the earth. So if you stop to work the land, then the fruit trees are going to fall down, and finally the palm trees. Then you are going to understand why it's important to know more about agriculture. But the water, we are in the desert, where they get in the water. Sometimes they only have 1.1 well, and they used to keep that on the mosque. You cannot imagine how many spaces like that, if not 300, because sometimes there are more than one mosque. This is a space from the 13th century, and people still use that the same way. It's like coming back to the past. And there are also how, if they don't have the river and they don't have the well, how they can get the water. This is a system developed for the first time, I don't know if in Egypt or Iran. It's called Khetara. It is an underground canal to bring water from the mountains to the palm grove. And some of them are completely abandoned, other works. Then there are the question of the canals inside the palm grove, or inside the cities, or how this canal condition the public spaces, because this is not the way architect we used to do now. We draw the line for the streets, and then the engineer is going to think about how to put everything underground. No, here, first of all, is the water, and then the public space. And then how they do the irrigation system. Sometimes very, very complex. It's more related to social issues, because they have several calendars. It's amazing. I'm not going to tell that because it's complicated. But the water is a problem when you don't have water, but also can be a problem when you have water, because sometimes you cannot cross the river. And believe me, there are some rivers that they can have 4 kilometers large. Why? This is a bridge completely destroyed by water. Water can arrive at any moment. Or water can make an island also. It was in November, last November. I was in an oasis. It was raining, and for 2 days we couldn't get out of the oasis because of the river. But sometimes they were even 2 weeks completely isolated. The crafts. It was, as a tourist, you arrive, you start to see what they do, the Minecraft, and you see the carpets. I told a guy, and this graphic design, where is he coming from? Because sometimes I see that also in architecture. And they told me that comes from the Berber tattoos. So how are you going to understand the architecture if you don't understand the graphic design that come from the tattoos from the Berber, which is the main tribe in the north of Africa? And that's what the first time I heard the name tribe. What is a tribe? In Morocco in the south, there are Berber tribes, there are Arab tribes, there are Drawa tribes. There were Jewish tribes, there are Saharan tribes. And today they are dressed in a different way. And their music are also different. And their dances are also different, which became an identity. That's why I told you that in the formation of the guide plan, in every place it was indicated the name of the tribe and also the dance of the tribe. They use the dances to spread the history. It's like an archive of the history, which it is not always very, very funny. So I started to understand much more, but not everything, of course. So I wanted to, with some friends, to try to search a solution for some problems. This is Hamid El Ghizlam, the last village of the last palm grove of the Dra Valley. Can you see over there? We can get closer. I thought at the first time that it was ruined houses with just 1 meter high of wall. But when I arrived there, it is like if the sun was a wave that was coming and destroying everything. And it is what is happening now. This is the wave, a sun wave. This guy was, we met him, he told us, I was living here, and I have to move to another house. Can we visit your house? Yeah. He tried to open the door. No, I couldn't. In fact, I moved again to another house. The sun is coming, and nobody's doing anything to stop that. It could be the question of consider the sun as a wave that come and that destroy everything. It's also very common in the palm grove. In the past, this is the river, and in the past, the palm grove arrived till but the sun is coming in this direction, and it's going to cut the palm grove in two. So with former students, I helped them with Najla Shairish and Insaf Burhim. I thought, how can we stop with architecture these dunes? So we decided to build a network of building made with rammed earth, like the other construction, with people living inside, and with the negative shape of a dune. And then the idea was to recover, to reforest the palm grove. So we had to learn about the agriculture of the oasis, the irrigation system, because if not, it was not possible to make a project like that. This is the kind of dune called Barhan. So we try to put an element who is going in theory to stop the dune. But then I told myself that would be great to build a model, but a real model, not the building, but in that place called Tisarmin, you can see the wall protecting what? An attack? No, they are protecting what is coming from there. These are 200 meters high dunes. And so there is sun that comes, and when that comes to that village, you see the problem. This wall has 3 meters high, and once per year they have to take all the sun away, because if not, it's going to come inside. So we decided to look for a small dune and to build this rammed earth wall, just 1 meter, and to see what happened, what was going to happen. If it is the dune going to go through the wall, is it going to be a stop, is it going to pass through each side? Again, we put all this information on Facebook. And one day I received another message. Hello, je m'appelle, my name is Thierry Béraud. I'm preparing a documentary series on the certification. It's a 5 episode of 5 deserts in the world: China, Australia, Morocco, Chile. I don't remember the other. I saw your project. Could you please come in 2 months to the desert? We are going to make an interview. Okay, why not? That was for Arte TV. Then it was broadcasted on National Discovery Channel, National Geographic, and 100 channels in the world. And just because we put all the information available on internet. No? In fact, that was a picture he took with his drone. So that's the wall. For 2 or 3 years, every time I came, I tried to measure the dune with the help of the kids of the village. That was much later, and it didn't work, I have to say. We realized that we need to have a weather station, because the dune was moving with the wind. But we didn't know how much distance they recover after the wind, so it didn't work. But I learned a lot of things about that. In the same city, it is a village 40 kilometers far from Algeria. No? There are only 20 houses, and I sent them images of, because they had no electricity in that village. I sent information about the wind tower that you can find in Iran, that just with a ventilation system and a little bit of water, they can reduce the temperature in 10 degrees. And when I told them that, Carlos, come here and let's try to build that tower. What? Yeah. So with another former student of mine in Hapsaya, we started to help them to build this building that they needed to have some activities between them. With the Iranian tower, I sent some messages to the Iranian teacher that had been studying that tower, but she never answered me. And we said, well, let's start then, let's see. They know how to build with rammed earth. They know how to build towers like the minaret of this mosque. So the only thing to know is how much amount of wind you have to let get inside. Well, it's not easy. In fact, we built the building. We started to build the tower, but then they don't have money. They finished just the floor, and they are using that. So a second research with no success. Third one. One morning in winter time, my car was completely wet. So that's the humidity, but we have to take this water, maybe if it's not a lot, as they do in the Atacama Desert in Chile. So I proposed my friends, let's build something to get the water with the same techniques nomads use for the tent. But also, I was thinking that if you don't put this plastic mesh, just with the ropes, it could be enough in order to have a support for climbing plants, in order to create a barrier to to the vegetable garden. It didn't work, and we started to build, to imagine how we can create a new garden in the middle of nowhere. If we don't have palm trees, we don't have fruit trees, we have nothing. How we are going to protect that from the wind, from the sun, that we know that arrive. So we tried to adapt that small project to create like a greenhouse with an aerodynamic shape according to from where the wind can come. And we started to build that, but at that moment they had a serious problem with water, and they told me, Carlos, we cannot plant anything because we have no water. So everything we are going to plant, we are going to lose, so we are going to wait. So we are waiting. So another research that goes nowhere. But it doesn't matter. So we have a research on rammed earth construction wind tower. We have another about dune barriers. We have another about how to create a new oasis from zero. I didn't know what was going to come next. I have to tell that. Because at the same time, I was always visiting places near the pine grove. So people could live inside or outside. And I thought there is nobody living outside these places. Except that sometimes I used to walk and I could find some traces of tent used by nomads. And moving from one pine grove to another pine grove, I could also find people living over there. Sometimes walking with camels, and sometimes walking or moving with car, like there. And I started to talk to them, and I realized that I was missing another world, completely parallel to the one I knew. And also I had the opportunity to talk to this man, Mokhtar. I made 3 interviews, 3 videos, because he's living in Hamidakis land, but till the border were open between Morocco and Algeria, he used to go to Timbuktu in the north of Mali by walk. He used to do caravans. When you arrive there, in the desert, they talk about the caravan, but you think about the movies, you think about the past. But this guy, till the end of the 80s, he crossed the desert by walk. And he was explaining me the route, where you can find water, if that water is okay or not. So I told myself I would like to cross. I cannot cross the Sahara Desert because now, not just the border, but with all the conflicts, it's really impossible. But what about if I do the same road the caravan did inside Morocco? So I started I call that a project called Kafila Ula, which in Arabic means the first caravan. So I asked my friend someone to come with me. I prepare with plans, and that's important for me also, not just for the graphic design. That was the plan you can download on the Texas University archive. Plan made in the 30s by the French army and then redrawn by the American army in the 40s and 50s with a huge information, because you cannot use that in the desert Google Maps. There is no internet connection in most of the places. So, and the compass, I used that twice, the compass, because the nomad that came with me, in theory, he knew the way. That's the theory. And for me also, it was a question on how to do not use telephones, do not use digital cameras, so I used several analogic cameras. And so we start to walk. It took 2 weeks, 300 kilometers, Ali, the 2 camels. And it was really, really amazing. Because you could, sometimes there were some nomads that came with us for a moment. I learned more about the water in that conditions, how they move. And after that, I put all the information on internet again. So some friend of mine contact me, friends are not friends. And we started to share information. So we decided to create an open research platform called Project Kafila, Project Caravan, with Ahmad Al-Fatni, a Sudanese artist researching on slave caravans between Sudan and Egypt, Oli Bonzanigo, Italian artist researching on trade, caravan trade, and Bark Bouchichi, a visual Moroccan artist from the south of Morocco, interested also in slave. Leonora Castagnone, Italian sociologist, she contacted me. Look, I would like to know more about the caravan roads because I'm working for the European Union and I'm making interview to the immigrants coming from the sub-Saharan countries to Europe. And I would like just to check what kind of road they follow. If they follow the same route of the caravan or another one. She had 300 interviews, and then I checked. 90% of the people used the same road. So I started to see that this caravan road, it was not just something for the past, but it could be useful to better understand what was going on right now. And Heidi Vogels, artist from Amsterdam, interested on gardens and the oasis as an island. So we started to collect information. Myself from Morocco, Pau from Algeria, Amado from Egypt and Sudan. And when you find a plan of the caravan road, yeah, you can find the point of the city of the oasis, but then the line is a line that they do in any way, you know. So with the experience of the first caravan, I told myself, okay, I know that I have to go from this point to another point. If I had to walk and to make by walk this road tomorrow, what could be the road? No? So I spent 2 or 3 weeks, the whole day, trying to connect all these points. It was like an amazing trip. And then we decided, as I told you, that only this part of Morocco now is safe to do that. We put, again, all these things on Google Maps. No? So there were 3 main points for the caravans. An oasis, Tirmart, this is the one, I told you there were 2 main valleys, the Dra Valley and the Sis Valley, with the cities. No? Tirmart and Hamid Rizani. They were called at that period Nomlanta Daragalt Sigil Masa. At that moment, a lot of friends told me, why are you doing all these things? What the hell are you doing in the desert? Why are you interested in the caravan? I just wanted to know more. But then when I started to know more about the caravan roads, I knew that from there, all the goods could be sent to Europe. It depends on the capital at that moment. Could be Marrakech, could be Fez. But then, most of them arrived to my city, to Ceuta. So the importance of all the civilization I showed you at the beginning, it was also to control the trade between Africa and Europe. But then, of course, from here, I think I'm going to stop to use this. But then there is the question of the connection between all these 3 cities and the south, Mauritania, Mali, and Niger. That was the second caravan we did, Kafila Thania, with some of the artists and researchers I show you. This is Pao, this is Anomat Mohammed, the Sudanese, Amado, and Barbushishi, the artist, and Sheikh. It was also amazing the urban territory, how now we are going to meet in this tree. It is the only tree you are going to find in 20 kilometers. So the nomad use that as a square in the city. You know? And how, when you stop, the limits of the space is the shadow. Because if the shadow moves, you move with the shadow. Because if not, you are not going to take a rest. Last year, I did the third one. I walked with 2 nomads and 2 camels, and we did 330 kilometers in 2 weeks. So, Rizani, the first step to Enhamid el-Gizlan, then I followed to Tirmart. It was really the like the border, the natural border. From there to Mauritania, 1,100 kilometers far from there, there is no water, there is no oasis. That's why they are considering these 3 points. Sometimes people talk like Saharan ports. It's the places where the caravans arrived, or where the people from there wait the orders to come here and then to go together to the south. No? And nowadays, if you go to overall to Tirmart or Hamid, I have the same sensation when I'm in a city with a very important port, like Lisbon, Marseille, because it's like a cosmopolitan place, with people talking several languages, several cultures, several ways of dress. Is really, really interesting. So I don't know what I'm going to do next, the next caravan, but I'm pretty sure that one day I will walk till Ceuta with the camels. No? Another kind of researches, because you can do researches directly or indirectly. Since 2013, in that oasis of Tirmart, we proposed artists to come and to make researches and to produce things related to the culture you are going to find there. This was Rashid Oni, an artist from Marrakech. He wanted to know more about how people use public spaces. So he asked children, what do you do during the holidays? Sometimes we do sailboat races. What? Yeah, come back tomorrow, and we are going to show you how we do that. So they built their own boat. They explained that. And then what's going next? We have to search for water. But there is water over there. No, but it's not running. We need running to do the race. It was like we were playing, but once you started to ask questions about the irrigation system, they started to explain, the kids started to explain you the irrigation system of the pantry. Because they knew where to find water running. And finally, they did the race. No? We call them the sailors of the desert. I can tell you that's something from 2013. It's not something I brought just for this presentation because we are talking about. Then Gilles Sulfry from Switzerland, a sound artist, and Heidi Vogel from Amsterdam, a visual artist. They were interested on the scene of the women, or again, the oasis as a garden. There were also Miriam Jasuli, a contemporary dancer and choreographer. We proposed her to work on traditional dances. And all the time I was with them, so I was learning with them a huge amount of things. You know? So the Sahara Sea. Why I have the same sensation? It is not just about the Saharan port. The Sahara, it's not always like that. It's not just the dune. Huh? There are only 3 regions with dunes. But when you are over there, if you cross a tourist, you are not going to say even hello. But if you cross a nomad, he's going to come to see you. He's going to talk, how is everything? Do you need something? Everything is okay? Where are you coming from? Where are you going? It's like the same sensation when I've been sailing in the Strait of Gibraltar. You cross a sailboat, you are going to have the same conversation. But you know that at any moment you are going to need help. But also another one is going to need your help, no? So this kind of solidarity that you are going to find also in the mountains, in the desert, in the seas, I think that it's a kind of when you are in a extreme condition where you are submission to the nature, that you realize how small we are. But then walking, it's like when you are sailing. Sometimes you see a lot of things, sometimes you see nothing. Sometimes you feel that you are faster, and sometimes you feel that you are not moving. No? In the desert, it's the same thing. You can see, I remember a conversation during the caravan. Carlos, that tree, how long do you think it is? I don't know, because if the tree is very small, we are closer. If it is very big and we saw that very small, maybe he's very far from here. The problem was when we was approaching that tree, and he became smaller and smaller. What the hell is going on here? We have to see that bigger and bigger, it's smaller and smaller. I thought I was becoming crazy. I asked Embark, did you see the same thing that me? Yeah. It's like the sea, it's exactly like the sea. And then there is also the change of the surface. And because living in Ceuta, I know how the color, how the volume of the sea can change with the wind, with many other things. So you can walk with a landscape, and you walk. I remember one day I saw 5 different kinds of landscapes. And I told myself, it is not possible. I used to see that when I'm traveling in a high-speed train in France or in Spain. But I have the same sensation. I'm walking 5 kilometers per hour. How is it possible? What the hell is going on here in this strange space? No? But it is not just about the sea. You know, that it's in black and white, but this is sand, orange and yellow, with white stones, like they came from the... That was, after the first caravan, I had the idea that I was visiting planets. If you see Interstellar, the film by Christopher Nolan, then I watched the film, I see myself, I also made the same thing. I was visiting planets, completely different, with water, with no water. And again, that sensation living in Ceuta, that this is a line coast, and the palm trees, it's like the sea that also they move, like the waves. Sometimes the water are the palm trees, but sometimes they are the sand, the small dunes, arriving to this shore. And that's why, talking with Elisa, I told myself, no, it's, the Sahara is a space where the behavior of the people is exactly the same that the people sailing. And I used to hear that the Sahara is a barrier, as same as the Strait of Gibraltar is a barrier, but in fact not. It's a way to connect people, a way to connect culture, a way to connect civilization. Because people from the south of Morocco, they say, we are closer, talking about music, to the people from the north of Mali and Mauritania than the people from Rabat or Marrakech. When they are together, people from Mali, we are living in the south shore of the desert. And you, Moroccan people, you are living in the north shore of the desert. But they are in the south of Morocco when they are in the north. For me, it's the same thing. Coming from Ceuta, when I'm in Spain, and people hear my Spanish accent, you are from the south. No, I'm from the north. No, stop, you are from the south. No, I'm from the north of Africa. So that can change a lot. No? People, the women from here, they are dressed the same way the women from here. Because they use the same clothes that they used to buy through the caravans. Now, the goods arrive by truck, but they keep that, So why all these researchers are they useless, useful? You never know, but remember again, wind catcher, dune barrier, new oasis. I remember that I did that because I just wanted. 2 years ago, someone from the urban and territory planning in the minister in Rabat, in Morocco, sent me a message because now he was in the south of Morocco in the region called Dakhla et Dahab. He told me, look, Carlos, we need to develop this region. The coast is very easy because we have beaches. For the tourists, it's very, 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 very easy. On the other hand, in the inner region, we don't know what to do. And that's one of the places. Carlos, we would like to build small cities over there. We don't know how to do, and the only architect I know that it is interested in oasis and also in nomad are you. And the people living there, all of them are nomad. If they are not living in the city in the coast, they are moving inside as a nomad. And the problem is that 20 years ago, they tried to build a city, this one. But they just built these buildings, and half of them are completely abandoned. And the first one was the official one. Now you have to go 300 kilometers far to Dakhla, to the capital, to make some papers. So the question is now they don't know what to do because the urban planning they know, it doesn't work in the desert. So I told them, look, first of all, you have to talk with the people living there, with the nomads. Because you don't know, I know, they live in a parallel world. So you have to ask them what they need. I know that they have problems with the hospital because they have to go to the main cities. They have problems with the scholarity of the children because before there were groups of 400, 500 tents, so they have their own school, not anymore. No? And that's a problem that Nomad told me. It's not something I read on books. They told me. And so I told them, forget about sustainability, green architecture. No, it doesn't work. However, if you study what you have in your country and you apply that, maybe it's going to work. So I proposed them, we need a place where people could be protected. So why don't you think no to an urban planning, but to build a mangrove? And if I didn't tell you that the fact that living inside the mangrove, the difference of temperature could be 6 degrees centigrade. So that's why I propose then, if we have to build something, let's do it inside this new oasis. Then we will see which kind of building we're going to do here, but for sure it's going to be an evolution of the Aksar. And why this circle? It is not like that, but making researches with the barrier, I realized that what you need is, first of all, that will be great if you have this shape, but overall you need to modify the wind. If you modify the wind, you modify the direction of the sun. And that's why I didn't put that, but because we have to produce energy, I told myself we can put, how you say, wind power. But wind power, not just in order to get power, but also to disturb the power of the wind. So I don't know if we are going to do that project. We are still talking about, but just because I started to research that didn't work and think that nobody care about that, maybe, inshallah, I'm going to have the opportunity to make 2 or 3 small villages from zero. And they have to get their own water, their own energy, And you have to take into account, of course, we are going to work with biologists, with geologists, with Moroccan University, to how to do those projects. Well, so I'm finishing because I think you are tired. But we come back to my city. And once you learn about the desert, you learn how people deal with nature. How people are able to live in cities, in small houses in the middle of nowhere, how people can live with tent or even without tent, because I forgot to tell you that when we did the caravan, the tent, we used them 3 days because we had rain. But if not, the moment when they are moving, they use nothing. You are under the stars, and I can tell you it's amazing. And then you search the shadow of that tree, and itself, when I started to learn more about the nomads, I wanted to know more about the tent, which is called Haima, and then I realized that they don't even use a tent. So I'm an architect trying to learn about architecture in a place where there is no architecture. So in Ceuta, we have a lot of problems because we can be isolated by the sea with the storm, more or less 10 days per year. Sometimes we have problems on the border because the smuggler, and so they decided to cut the border for 4 or 5 hours. Then we have, of course, all the immigrants coming from sub-Saharan countries that they come to Ceuta and Melilla, the other Spanish city, because it's the shortest way to cross to Europe, by boat, a small boat, by jet ski, but many other means. No? The same thing they do, the Homo sapiens and Homo erectus a long time ago. The problem is that the authorities don't know what to do. And sometimes I wrote on my website and then I told them, look, you have to change completely your mentality. You have to think that we are living really in an island, completely isolated, that we don't belong to Spain, we don't belong to Morocco, we don't belong to the European Union. So we don't have laws, we don't have money, we don't have energy. So what the hell are we going to do? But we are going to start to think like nomads. How to do with the small things we are going to live. Because only when you are in an extreme condition, you are going to think how to solve them. If not, it's very easy to say, no, the Spanish government is going to send us money. If not, Brussels, the European government. No, you have to deal with your own problems. You are the one who is going to solve because you know what's really going on. In the border in Ceuta, nobody knows why. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it takes 5 minutes to cross the border, sometimes it takes 6 hours. And they are doing something, but you already know that it's not going to work. And then, no, Madrid is going to come to make some work. But then we don't know what's happening. Do you expect them to know what is happening? No, you are just wasting money. But again, of course, when they hear me, they're going to say, are you crazy? Come with me to the desert, then you are going to see if I'm crazy or I'm not crazy. But for me, now I started, really, after 10 years, I started to better understand the desert. I didn't want to talk about spirituality also in the desert, but it's, at the end, it's also the submission to the nature. In the desert, if there is a sandstorm, no one told you, you stop right now. You don't move because you can't get lost very easily, because you're not going to see intruders. And you cannot cry, you cannot say, you have to accept that. That was that moment with the sandstorm, protected with the tarpon. This is a selfie, a Saharan selfie. you are covered with a kind of a fabric that lets you see a little bit, but you are protected. But at the moment, with the nomad, we agree, no, we have to stop. You cannot go on. I remember one day we were sailing in Ceuta. Well, we tried to sail, to make some sailing, and we crossed a British guy. Hello, hello, everything is okay? Yeah, where are you going? No, tomorrow I'm going to Tarifa. And my friend, who is a real sailor, not me, tomorrow you're not going to Tarifa. Yeah. Tomorrow you're not going to Tarifa. Yeah. Look, I have a lot of experience crossing the Atlantic Sea, in the North Sea. Tomorrow you're not going to Tarifa. Okay, let's see. In the morning he left the port, and in the afternoon he's coming back. Oh, I couldn't, it's terrible, the wind is possible. I told you, tomorrow you're not going to Tarifa. You didn't listen to me. When the sea says you cannot go, you cannot go. The desert, when it says you cannot go, you cannot go. You have to accept that, and that's all. If you want more information, my website, the one from Marsadra, Caravan Tirmar, is about the contemporary artist, and Poet Kafela is about caravans. So now, questions. If not, it's going to be me who's going to ask questions. So it's up to you. Nothing, really? Yeah.
I went this summer to Gambia, and I learned that people cross the desert to go to Europe. So I was wondering, is your work stopping just to the border of Mali and stuff like that, or
That's the desert.
Okay. Or did you think about all the populations that come from the south of Africa, but at one point cross the Sahara desert? Desert. My question wasn't clear.
First of all, this line is according to all these cities that are considered as Saharan port. In fact, they are related to the geography, to the mountains, and then to the valleys. And it is the same thing over there. So we could discuss a lot about what is a desert. And I have friends that when they came with me from the first time to the desert, they asked me, we are already in the desert? Well, that depends on what you understand to be a desert. It's a place where nobody is living. It's a place where there is no water. There is a place where there is no vegetation. It depends. So again, the question, please. What?
Why are you here with us instead of in a caravan?
Because of Eunice, but in 2 weeks, I'm going to do another caravan. 2 weeks next month. So, also it takes money, it takes time. You have to be prepared physically and psychologically also. It is said also that when you are you did that, not to a trip in the Mediterranean Sea in a boat, that it's also a psychological experience because you are people staying together. It doesn't matter if the boat is a big one or not. I had the same sensation with the caravan. When we were with the artist, we were in total 9 people, and you were in the middle of the desert, but you felt that you were closed in a small room during 10 days. And some conflicts arise between us because of that. So that's why also, and it's the question also of the dimensions of the desert, in the space and time. what I said about the trees that they became smaller once you get closer. So it's not easy. This guy, Mokhtar, the first time I met him, he started to tell us stories during his trips, his caravans. And there was one that I loved. I didn't understand very well at that moment. He explained me that after a long walk, several weeks, they arrived to a village. So he and his brother, they were invited to have dinner in a house. And in a house, a typical house, which means there is just one big room, and in the middle they were having dinner. At a moment, he fell asleep there, and then the other one, they feeling they are going to sleep in the same place. In the middle of the night, he woke up, and he started to scream, help me, please help me. Everybody is starting to wake up. What happened, Mokhtar? I cannot see, I got blind, help me, please. Mokhtar, wait, we are going to turn on the light. And when he realized he didn't get blind. What happened? He used every time he opened his eyes, what he saw was the stars. When he couldn't, he thought it was a problem with the eyes. Now when I'm in the desert, it doesn't matter if it is December, it is 0 degrees. If there is no wind and no rain, I sleep outside. And I watch the stars and the moon. So once you live that, you can better understand. That's why also I told you that it's more important to live the experience than to read the experience. And that's the difference also with a lot of research. They read, but they don't live.
I hope that my question did not come across as a criticism, because I think the way you were researching is exactly the way that I would like to live my life. So, I mean, maybe not the same subject matter, but the fact that you live it instead of just read it, I have so much respect for that.
No, but then there is another question. We talked with Elisa some weeks ago about what is, I'm very critical with the academical research. You cannot imagine how many researchers have crossed there and they was just interested in math bricks, another in how to make ramen earth, another in water, but they couldn't see what was around them, so they couldn't understand. Yeah, they could write a lot of things and publish and talking in Congress, but they didn't understand the place. And they came, and I remember that we have a mission. So we come here with a schedule of 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then we come back and that's all. And the research is done and I can do many other things. For me, it's impossible. Of course, you have to like what you do, but when you can learn, not just as an architect, but as a person, and then you can apply in several ways, you know? And you can change your way of thinking and to understand things. And all that for free, you don't have to pay for that academic study.
And how were you communicating with those people? Are you speaking Arabic, French? How many languages? English, maybe?
It depends. Sometimes when we were, most of the time I try to speak in traditional Arabic. I don't speak very well, but they don't speak also very well, because they use the Darija, the dialect, and they use the Berber a lot also, and they used to mix all of that. But then I can communicate with them. Sometimes if they speak French, I also speak with French, sometimes in English. So.
Yeah, it's a mixing.
I have a question about, so you were talking about the Sahara is expanding, like
know, do you have an like estimation of like how many villages will be sort of like not destroyed, but like partially buried by the descent?
Talking about the certification, people, it is not just a question that the sun arrived with the wind, more complicated. The pine grove that is going to be cut in two, it is not just because of the sun. It is because the people are not working anymore the land. Other friends, I told you that they take the sand once per year and they put that away. I'm going to show again that picture because I met a guy, a young people. Okay, this image. One day I was walking over there and a young guy over there told me, look, you want to see my plot? I'm going to show them. He was 17 years old, 18 years old. And he told me, look, I don't know why my friends, they don't want to work in their plot. Because in that small plot, we earn 2,000 euros per year. But they have three other plots. So people say, no, we are poor people now. I know that if you work with the right tree, like that area, you can get $1,000 per palm tree per year. If you have a plot like that, you can have 20 palm trees. So you can have a lot of money. The problem is that it is not just enough to work with the palm tree. You have to take care of the fruit trees, and you have to work also the land in the middle with the cereal, which takes more time. And people also, the fact that you say that you are working on agriculture, for them it's like, no, I'm a poor man. I prefer to say that I'm working with tourists, I have a guest house, something like that. So, the certification, there are several elements that they are combined differently, depends on the place, and the result also is different. But that's something I learned. It is not just so simple, the problem, neither the solution. When I visited one of these bazaar with a group of young people, no, here we don't have money to rebuild the mosque. Wait. What do you need to rebuild the mosque? Because the earth, you can reuse the same earth. The wood for the mix, the same, you can reuse that. The only thing you need is water. Now we have water on the well, so why are you not working on that? Because you don't want to do that. But you can rebuild that without money. But for them, sometimes it's better to say, we have no money, we expect European people to come here to help us, to give us money. And then you have a lot of European or other people coming, you are going to help, you are going to think, to build things or without knowing the complexity of the society or the problem. So, what else?
So once the houses are like buried under the sand, what do people do? Do they just like build another one? Like, oh, that's like
They move to another one, to another one, to another one. Once I met the guy responsible for the desertification. He's an engineer. And I was presenting in a local forum in Sahara what we did with the students, former students. He told me, in fact, it was him who gave me the idea of building small wall. And I asked him, well, you are working in the south of Morocco. Do the architects there take into consideration all these problems. He told me, look, Carlos, you are the first architect I'm talking about this question. No architect at all working in the south with those problems care about that. In fact, in that village, the problem is that it's an urban territory, so it's the urban agency who has to resolve that problem. But because it's a question related to the forest, and there is a department for that, they do nothing. But the forest department, they do nothing because it's urban territory. So people told me, Carlos, what we can do? I proposed then to organize a seminar to bring people, students, to try to find a solution. But then it is not easy to convince them to say that, not like here. Then, talking about economy, is also very relative, the idea of having money or not having money. Because you can, the first night I slept in the desert with Nomad, it was a family, they told me it was one of the richest family in this part of the desert. But one day, a truck coming from Algeria came and they took all the animals. So it was the richest guy because he had a lot of animals, not because he had a lot of money. Yeah, of course he could sell the animals, but it is this another conception of life. And I imagine it could be the same thing of the knowledge you should have in your countries or in other deserts. Anyway, I can tell you that when I started to work as an architect, first of all, I studied in Sevilla, in the Andalusia, in the south of Spain. I didn't want to come back to Ceuta, a small city in Africa. And then I started to work with this tower fortification, because my father was a military engineer, and I lived in the place where the military engineer made the project for those fortifications, but also during the Moroccan protectorate. And then I started to discover what we had in the north of Africa. Well, then I moved to France for 8 years, but then I decided to came back because I was a little bit tired of Lyon, France, mentality.
I'm coming from here, careful.
Eh?
I'm coming from Lyon.
From Lyon?
Well, near, but but I get what you said. I left Paris 2 years ago, and I'm happy about it.
And then I came back also to teach at the architecture school of Tetuan, and then I started to discover the desert, and I told myself, you don't need to go to Europe, not anymore, but you have so many things to learn here that it is not worth. And things that you think that they are not interested at all, but then when universities from MIT call you and things like that, well, maybe it was not the way people used to do that, but I don't care. I do the way I think it's not the best way, at least the way I can do that. You know? And that's very important when once you are going to finish, you are going to come back to your city, to your country, what you are going to do. Maybe if you say that you are living in a big city in Paris instead of a village near the Lyon Metropole, people are not going to consider you like an architect that has been succeeded in life. No? I don't care about that. I prefer to do what I like to do. And in this profession, you are going to be paid half of the money you should be paid, and it's going to be very, very hard. At least it is for something you get fun. If not, and what I wanted to say that I never imagined, even when I came back from Lyon to Ceuta again, I never could imagine all the things I was going to do. Which for me, for many people can be scared to do not know what are you going to be and to be and to do. in 20 years, but I love that. I started to work in the city hall in Ceuta at the beginning, and 2 years later I said myself, go out, you need more time to do other things and to travel. I could stay there, very well paid, not a lot of work. Then it's up to you to choose. What else?
I have one more question. So you're talking about the port cities near the Sahara, and when I wonder, like for people who don't know the road, if they want to cross the Sahara, where they can find such information? Is there also like, you know, when if people want to cross the sea, just like certain they need to pay a lot of money to cross the sea. Like here in Sahara, do they also have this like kind of service or not? I don't know.
On the west side of the Sahara, which means in Morocco, this guy that used to go to Timbuktu by walk, he told me, Carlos, never trust in another guy if he's not a Saharan, from the Saharan tribe. Mm. They really know the desert. The Berber, they're Arab, they don't know the desert. So in another, it must be people from that place. Then, of course, I didn't talk about everything I have been reading about explorers. Do we have time? And the problem of the desert is you start to search for a question, and then another field of research appears. I read, I heard about some guy called Charles de Foucault, a French military in the 19th century, deployed in Algeria when Algeria was a French province. And he asked himself, it is not possible that we have a country like Morocco and we know nothing about that. So I would like to propose how to do a travel in order to explore that country. That could be an ally, that could be an enemy. So he convinced the authorities to pay that, except that at that moment, 1888, it was forbidden for Christians to travel through Morocco. So first of all, he has to learn the Jewish language. And then he had to find a guide who was Jewish from the south. And he wrote a book called Reconnaissance du Maroc, that you can download for free on internet. And he started in Tangier, and he started to go through the country to the south. And the information he got about geography, about sociology, about agriculture was amazing. Then he came back and he went to the Algerian desert. And then he became a priest. And he wanted to create his own order. And he was the first guy who made a Tuareg French dictionary. And then the Tuareg told them, look, come with us because there are people coming from Libya, they are hunting French people. So if they find you, you are going to be killed. Not going to move and living here alone in this house. I'm not going to move. Finally, he was killed by them. But then, who was the guy who was with him? Mardoché. Mardoché, he was Moroccan, he was Jewish, he was from the south, from Akka, the same city that Moroccan artist I told you. And he used to go to Timbuktu by walk also. And you can find also the books with the road on a plan, and he said that when he arrived to Timbuktu, he had to pass a kind of exam to see if you know really the Islam and the Quran. If you know the Quran, you can come to the city, so you can train. And he passed the exam, and the guy, well, you told me that you are Jewish, but how do you know so well our religion. So look, I'm living in a city where there are Berbers, Muslim, and Jewish, and for us it's very useful to know that. And then you started to learn more about the Jewish that arrived in the 5th century before Jesus Christ there. And the jewelry they are using now is a heritage of the Jewish. And that's a problem. If you just start to want to learn more and more and more, it's not easy. So you ask me why are you are here not working? I don't know how long it's going to take me to do the main roads in Morocco. But I don't want to be as a researcher from a university that no, I have a plan. No, you have no plan. Let's see what happens in the future.